Hello and welcome to the Coming Down to Earth with Spirit podcast with me, your host, David Hale. In the podcast, we'll be talking about mediumship and all things spiritual in a down-to-earth and honest kind of way, with a touch of humour also. So I hope you can join me on my podcast journey so you can learn from my own spiritual journey and experiences with spirit in the aim to help you on your own spiritual journey, or it may just be to answer any of those questions that you have about the spiritual world. So join me now as we get into this episode. So I wanted to start off my podcast with, by turning a video series that I've recently started on YouTube into a podcast so people can listen rather than having to watch a video of me talking. And I started the video series with the aim of educating people who are either learning to be a medium or just people who want to know about the spiritual world, what happens, what is mediumship, how does it work, by discussing my own examples and real life experiences with spiritual moments or readings that I've done for other people. So hopefully you'll find the episodes entitled Spiritual Impacts interesting, and you will hear me referring to the video. Of course, this is a podcast, so you don't see a video, but it does reference the videos that I have now turned into this podcast. But if you do feel inclined to actually watch me talk about these topics, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is davidh_medium, but the content is exactly the same. Let's get into this episode. And we're now on episode 7, and in this episode we're going to talk about animal communication, and not communication with living animals, but those animals that have passed away to spirit. Now this can be, I guess you could say, quite a controversial topic, because there are some people, especially the skeptics, that don't believe that animals can come, well, don't believe humans can come through, let alone animals, but no, they say animals don't speak and animals don't have this and animals don't have a soul. There are some people who say animals don't have a soul, animals don't have feelings. Of course, are you stupid? Of course they do. Animals are living, breathing creatures. Yes, they are a different species to us, and animals are here on Earth for a different reason than humans are. But animals are still living things. They still have their own personalities, their own characters. You know that if you've got animals, you know they've got their own little personalities, their own little characters. They're sentient beings, they're intuitive beings. They know when you want love, they know when they want love, they know when they want to be stroked, they know when they don't want to be stroked, no matter what the animal is. So yes, our animals do go to the spirit world, and they will be looked after by those in spirit that are there waiting to receive them. Now, I've had quite a few animals come through to me during my readings, and I'm using these in this series because, it impacts me in the sense that it impacts my learning, because it makes me understand that it's not just our human counterparts that go to spirit world, but our animals, our beloved animals, also go to spirit as well. And the evidence that I've received from certain animals, it still blows me away a little bit, because you think, there are some humans in the spirit world which have trouble communicating, but an animal can still manage to do it also, but not in the way that you think. But let's talk about my personal experiences with communication where animals have come through. And again, as I always say, this is from my experience. Other mediums might say to you something different. They may never have communicated with animals in the spirit world, but I personally have, so I can only go with what I experience, right? So you hopefully learn from this as well. I've got a few. So let's talk about one reading that I did, which still stands out to me. Now, before I go into that actual reading, let's just quickly touch on the communication with animals in the spirit world. Now, look, animals couldn't speak in life, therefore they're not going to speak in death, right? I'm not going to hear them talk to me because they don't talk. Animals do not talk. There's a different type of communication. You may say that when your animal is living, you might have had a telepathic communication with them. I personally know with our little dog here, I know when she wants something. And you can say that about your animal as well. You know when they want something. They might look at you a certain way. I knew when she was very, very ill and it wasn't diagnosed at that stage. We don't know, no, my other half didn't notice anything, but there's something about her which I picked up on, and I felt she was very ill, and she was, and she had to have an emergency operation, otherwise she might not be here anymore. But luckily now she's fine. So there is that different type of communication we have with animals and spirit. It's not about me sat here talking to them. That's not what it is. They'll put thoughts and memories in my head about memories they had when they were living. Let's talk about this first example. So I did a reading for a lady who her family members had come through, and then I was very much aware of this little dog which looked like a puppy to me that I could see in my head. Again, I don't get breeds. I said that in a previous video. I don't get breeds. I just get a dog. But I knew it was a small dog, and it felt like it was a little puppy dog, something like that. And she acknowledged that was correct, that she did have a dog, but not for very long though. And I felt that this dog had been in some kind of, I didn't feel this dog died naturally. I felt there was a bit of an accident, because I could feel on my right side that there was some kind of injury there. And yes, she confirmed that the dog had been knocked over by a car. And the lady goes on to explain that she's surprised the dog had come through, or she was glad the dog had come through, because she only actually had this puppy for 3 weeks before the dog had then sadly passed, which is horrendous, right? You get a little dog, and you only have it for a short time because it's suddenly it passes due to an accident, and then all of a sudden, in my head, I saw this dog, and I saw bluebells, like a bluebell field or something. I'm thinking, what has this got to do with this dog? So I said it to her, and she put her hand up to her mouth in shock, and she said, in that 3 weeks that I had that dog, I was only able to walk the dog once, and that one walk I took the dog on was through a bluebell field. And she remembers it clearly because it was the only walk that she was able to take the dog on, because it was so young, and then obviously it sadly passed in the accident. So the only walk she took that dog on was through a bluebell field. Now, how would I know that unless it come from that spirit dog? I'm not gonna know that. So that one example there, that kind of took me by surprise a little bit, because I thought, okay, the dog obviously has a memory whilst it was living, and it brought that memory through to say to its owner, although I sadly passed in a tragic accident, I'm alright. That's a memory that I have. So that's the first example. Another example, and this is just a small one, just to show you how they communicate in different ways, and I get different evidence with regards to them. Because, as I say, if I come back to not getting breeds, I don't get breeds because it's not necessarily my frame of reference, but the dogs will give me other bits and pieces, like characteristics or something, to say that this is me, rather than me just saying, oh, it's a dog. So another example is I was doing a reading for a lady, and I think her mum, I can't remember if it's her mum or dad, someone come through, I can't really remember. And I remember again seeing this female dog, and I knew it was a female. I don't know why I knew it was female, but I just knew it was a female dog, not a male dog. And he said, yes, that's correct. And I may have described the dog, I can't remember now, but what I do remember is, as the lady was communicating with me from spirit, I heard the name Judy given to me, and I thought in my head, is she trying to say that her name is Judy? Because not necessarily a common female name, but it is a female name. And the client said to me, no, that's not her. That dog you're talking to, the name was Judy. So that's another example where, an animal, I'm actually potentially, it could have been even the lady that gave me the name of the animal, but it's just extra evidence to back up the fact that the animal is there in the spirit world with the lady. So Judy, because who calls their dog Judy? It's not a judgment. I've heard some really strange names for dogs, but Judy for me is not a common name for a dog. So I know that's the lady telling me the dog is there in spirit with her. Another a bit of a funny example. This is to do with a bird, and I was in a reading for a lady, and I think her father had come through, something like that, and I was suddenly aware of this parrot sat on my shoulder, and I think it might have been the first time I'd actually had a bird come through or something, but it was clear as day. It was this little parrot, parakeet. It was something like that. That I saw in my head, and she went, She went, oh yes, years ago we did have a parrot. Okay, and then the parrot started showing me things like wasn't in a cage, and it wasn't. I was in my head. The parrot was showing me. It was being fed out of someone's hand. Like someone had their hand out and the parrot was taking the food out of the hand. So yes, that was whoever it was in spirit, that's now in spirit, that I used to feed the parrot that way. The parrot wasn't a caged bird. It was in the house. It had a cage, but it would be let free. And that's what it would do. It would sit on the shoulder, but then it would eat out the palm of your hand. So that's just another little example there of the animals in the spirit world coming through as well. I'll give another two more examples, just the ones that have been popped in my head, just so I can I can get them all out. Then another one was with I was communicating with a lady, and I can't remember who was coming through, but this dog did come through, and I saw this dog in my head running round, being a bit mental, and I heard the name Jasper been put into my mind, and she kind of laughed, but she didn't say anything. And I said, I've got the name Jasper, and then I'm seeing this dog, and as this dog is running around being a bit mental, it's like he's either chasing a carrot. There's something to do with it's got a carrot in his mouth, or he's chasing this carrot. And I said, what on earth am I seeing? And she laughed her head off. She said, the dog's name was Jasper. And the dog was actually named after the British comedian, I think it's passed now, called Jasper Carrot. I was like, come off it. I mean, honestly. She went, no, honestly, the dog was called Jasper and was named after the comedian Jasper Carrot. So again, the dog was giving me information. I got the name from the dog, and the dog put the image in my head of a carrot, again, to give me extra evidence that this is this lady's dog that had come through, and she was very happy that this dog had come through. And this last example I'm going to give you, I was at work doing an art, setting up an art event, an art party, and my colleague was there with me as well. And she was setting up a table with some of the equipment, and I moved to stand next to her to help her out. And as I stood next to her, in my head, I heard hinge and bracket. And I know hinge and bracket to be back in the I think it's the 80s, maybe 70s, 80s, a comedic duo. I think they were a drag duo, hinge and bracket, and I don't know why I was hearing. I just heard it in my head. It's clear as day. Hinge and bracket. Now I'm not switched on when I'm doing other stuff. Right, when I'm at work, I'm not switched on. So I wondered why. So for whatever reason, I decided to say out loud, because normally I keep these things to myself. But I said out loud to her. I said, "Why am I hearing hinge and bracket in my head?" And she looked at me and she giggled, and she went, "Well, I don't know." And then she thought about it, and then 30 seconds later, she went, "Oh, wait a second. My mum and dad, so as kids, my mum and dad had two parrots or two parakeets or whatever they were, called Hinge and Bracket." Oh. I wasn't seeing them, but they'd put the thought in my head to say Hinge and Bracket, and that was their names. So I said to her, right, just so you know, those two birds, they're up in the spirit world, having a lovely time, from what I can tell. There's what you'd let you know that they're there. That might sound really random, but she laughed and she said, "Thank you very much, I'll let them know." But yeah, it's just another way that those spirit animals wanted to let me know, or to let that person know that that they're in the spirit world. It sounds a bit ridiculous, I know, I appreciate that very much, but yeah, they come through like that. So the lesson to take from this is your fur babies or winged babies or whatever animal they are, could be a horse. I've had horses come through before now as well. They are in the spirit world as well, being looked after. And it's funny, sometimes you do a reading for someone and a human comes through and the person's like, oh, okay, yeah, thank you, I can take that. An animal comes through and they start crying. Isn't it funny? Well, because animals teach us unconditional love, don't they? Right? So just know your spirit animals are in the spirit world and they can come through because they're living beings. Yet just because they're not human doesn't mean they don't live. They don't have a soul. Of course they do. They're part of your family, your fur family, right? Your spirit animals can come through. I would say don't let anyone tell you any different. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers some questions that you may have had about where your spirit animals go. Well, they go where the rest of us go, and they're looked after as they always were when they were here. So there you have it. That's that episode finished. Hopefully you enjoyed what you heard, and if so, there are plenty more episodes in the Spiritual Impact series to come. So do stick around if you're interested in learning more from my own personal experiences with spirit. Once again, you can find the videos on YouTube if you wish to watch me talk about it. Otherwise, please stick around with the podcast and you can download the episodes and listen until your heart's content. But until then, look after yourselves and hopefully I'll speak to you all soon.